What the F happened in 1971? We're going to talk about that in relation to inflation and maybe even touch a little bit on Russia and Ukraine. Also, holding over the whole entire thing, what it's going to do to crypto. So, with that being said, if this is your first time here, what's good? My name is Sam. For those of you who are returning, it's good to freaking see you. I don't know if you've been to the grocery store in the last, say, fucking 20 months, but prices have increased, right? I don't know if you go to the gas station. Well, I don't have to go to the gas station because I have a Tesla, but if you do go to the gas station, right, $1.89, $1.79, $1.99, now it is $4 a gallon, right? The price has doubled for something across the board for something that a lot of the population uses. And if you look at the data for January, 7.5% inflation. So that means if you have $100 worth of stuff in December, in January, that say you go to buy the same exact shit, it's now $107.50 because what is happening. Now, let's talk about 1971 quickly and what exactly happened. So in 1971, and you can see this cool chart that somebody put together. It's just called what the F happened in 1971. We came off the gold standard. There was a bunch of different stuff. I think that was the year Apollo landed on the moon or something like that. But they wanted to increase the money supply, right? If you are a company that is publicly traded, you have two things that you can sell to make money. And this is not what anybody else is going to tell you about who's in the financial world. My background is I have an MBA in finance and accounting and a CFA and a couple other things as well. But none of this is taught in an MBA. None of this is taught in the CFA. None of it is taught in the CMT or CAIA or in any job or any financial job that I've ever had. But public companies have two things to sell: their products and or services and paper to the public. Yes, products and or services, right? Tesla sells cars along with, a plethora of other things. We'll just say cars, right? But there's several other things that they sell, like, solar roofs and battery packs and industrial stuff and auto bitter and all this other shit that they do, right? But that's one thing that they sell, their products and services. Now, they also sell paper. Yes, paper called stock. And they sell paper to investors. Now, when you think about the United States as one player in a stock market with 192 roughly other players, the 192 is the number of countries in the United States according to the United States. If you look at some other sources, it's over 200 countries, so it really depends on where you look at the source, but nearly 200 countries. These are the organizations of the world that dictate how 8 billion people pay taxes. Doesn't that seem right to you? Well, let's get back to this. I digress. So you have these countries that are doing two things, right? You could have a product or service, or you can sell paper, right? So there's not a tremendous amount of, in my opinion, there's not a tremendous amount of value that government brings in terms of products and services. Everything that the government brings in terms of products and services could be done way faster, way more efficiently, way cheaper if the private sector was done with the appropriate incentives in place. But they can sell more paper. But when you go to sell more paper, say in the case of Tesla, right? If they were to go through like, hey, we're going to sell another 1 billion shares of paper to the marketplace is going to be like, oh shit, that's diluting our shares, right? there's about 1 billion shares outstanding of Tesla. So if they go from 1 billion to 2 billion, and I own 100 shares, the percentage of the company that I own gets diluted because by 50%, right? So it's basically devaluing the current holders of that. Well, that is effectively what the government wanted to do. Before 1971, it was pegged to the dollar. I'm sorry, the dollar was pegged to gold. So you could just take your dollars and you could exchange them for gold. Well, that was changed in 1971. I think it was Nixon that actually changed that. And I found this very interesting. There's a lot of really cool charts in here. This is productivity in the United States from 1948 to 2017, right? So this is relatively old data, 5 years old, but it does cover a lot of information. And this is the compensation. So you get to see, let's make sure you guys could, you get to see a massive shift. What do you think happened in 1970? Were you like, well, that's just one chart. You can't say for sure that's the case, where compensation barely did anything, actually declined effectively, and then rebounded slightly. There's some other data in here that's very interesting. This is real GDP per capita, and this is the real median, so that's going to be the middlemost number of weekly earnings. Flat line, actually a slight decline from 1971 versus real GDP continues to grow. You have things like this is the income growth from 1917 through 2012. So this is 10 years old data. The top 1% earners in red and the bottom 90% of earners in blue. Look at that, 1971. Like if I pull up the calculator right here and we cut this off, you're like, oh wow, the bottom 90% of people in the country have around the largest portion of income in the country. And then they're like, well, let's take us off of the gold standard so that we can just print money, right? Because what's the difference between, say, the top 1% versus the average or the median person, right, in the bottom 90%? So let's talk about the average median person, right, like that middlemost person or average person, versus like contrasting them versus the top 1%. What does the top 1% own? Assets, not dollars. Because the top 1% understands that the government is going to continue to increase how many dollars are in circulation. And if they hold those, like in the Tesla example, their dollars are going to be worth less because of Tesla issuing more shares, right? Well, what does the median or the average individual own? Well, those save money in the bank. They put dollars into the bank. They don't own assets, right? They don't try to buy assets, right? They just fucking buy consumer shit. They buy things that go down in value, right? Contrast that with the people who are in the top 1%. They buy things that go up in value, where people in the bottom 90% buy shit that goes down in value. Doesn't seem like a good idea, but the difference is the information, because the bottom 90% doesn't realize what the government is doing. When you take a look at the last 24 months for the money supply, so this is going to be like time deposits and bank savings and just currency in general in the United States that are easily liquidatable. This is the M1 supply at Fred. So Fred is a, I don't remember what the acronym for, but they have a lot of useful information. It's fredluisfed.org. And you get to see here, hopefully this is actually able for you guys to see here. Yes, okay. You get to see this is the money supply. And if we go back, say, to 1971, see if there's any change. Right, so 1971 is back here, and it is continuing to increase, right? And you see the slope of the line has changed slightly throughout this time period. Happened around the 2008 when the government decided to bail out banks and print massive fucking quantities of money. And then look at this literal straight line up, right? We have a line that is not doing anything other than almost going completely vertical. And that's, you have to zoom in to do that. That is the government printing around 40% of all dollars ever in existence over the last 24 months. So let's make this more concrete, right? In the example with Tesla, they have 1 billion shares, right? And instead of making their operations more effective, more efficient, right? Continuing to iterate on improving the products and services they offer, like the Tesla vehicles, right? Like their solar roof, like their battery packs, like their manufacturing plants, and reducing costs, right? How you can do things differently. What if they just were like, hey, let's just stop getting better and let's just issue $400 million, 400 million more shares to the market. That way, we don't have to actually get better and do anything. That is what the government chose to do, right? They chose to just print more fucking money. That means the people who are in that bottom 90% that we talked about, who hold money, right, that goes down in value. So the people in the bottom 90% who save, right, because those people tend to save money, they don't tend to buy assets. We already talked about that. So their savings just gets decreased, right? It's a tax on the uninformed. Just like fees at banks are a tax on stupid people, right? You have like overdraft fees and non-sufficient fund fees and all that kind of stuff. You know who pays those fees? The vast majority of all those bank fees here in the United States? Stupid people. And not necessarily stupid, like I'm sure they're hardworking, intelligent people. But it's just a tax on dumb people who don't know how to manage their money. They're not fiscally responsible, right? That's what I mean by stupid, from a financial perspective. This is also more information. This is another chart from Fed. This goes share of gross domestic income, compensation of employees, wages, salaries, accruals. Look at this. 1971, right? We can see that it was basically flat, and then a massive just decrease. That's what happens when you just go through and absolutely print money. Real GDP per capita in male median income. So this is men, right? And their average, there's a middlemost income for men versus real GDP. A massive discrepancy right here. All just happened in 1971. Real GDP per. This one's fascinating because there's not as much. It's not as drastic as men, right? What does that say? Men are doing something different. I don't know, but clearly it's not happening for women as much. Real GDP per capita and median female income is tracking real GDP better than men. Interesting. Ladies, if there's any ladies watching, most women don't watch this, but if there is, what are your thoughts on that? That's actually a very fascinating piece of data, right? And this is back to 2010, it looks like. America has become a nation of dual income. Obviously, we knew this. As the income becomes less valuable, right? You need more of it coming in. There was another chart. Although this I found this interesting, and then there's I think one or two more down here. We'll take a look at. Cost of living in 1971. A house was $25,000. A new house. That's incredible. Average income was 10 grand per year. That's astonishing. 1971 wasn't that long ago, right? That was only 50 years ago. I'm 37, right? So that wasn't very long ago. Now, I want to ask you a question. Given this is what's happened over the last 50 years, Try to take a guess what the dollar's going to be worth. If it is still even around, I don't think it will be personally, over the next 50 years. It is going to zero. Sugar, 62 cents for 5 pounds. Vitamin D milk, I guess that's what it used to be called, $1.17 per gallon. Ground coffee, 98 cents per pound. This is crazy. Bacon per pound, 80 cents. It's like $5 and $8 per pound now. Not even per pound. It is like $5 or $8 per package, and each package a lot of times is 10 to 16 ounces. So remember, 16 ounces is a pound. So somewhere between, say, $5 and $10. I've seen it as high as like $15 for one package of bacon. Eggs, 45 cents per dozen. So this one seems to have the least amount of inflation in it. Eggs, currently I think I'm paying about $1.37, so a tripling in 50 years versus some of these other things, right? I haven't bought milk or sugar or coffee in a long time or whatever. Fresh ground hamburger. I don't know if this is the burger meat, but it was 62 cents per pound. Now it's $5 or $6 per pound, depending on what type of ground meat you get. Maybe it's $5 to $9 or whatever. Fresh baked bread also probably has not increased as much as other things because they've reduced the quality of the bread, in my opinion. But let's go down here. There was another chart here in red that I wanted to take a look at. Maybe it was this one. Home values skyrocketing. Income basically staying flat. So what does all this mean? How can you take all this information and start making better choices for your financial future? Well, given that we see the data of what's happened, we know that the dollar is going to go to zero. So, simple question. If you have investment choices to make, are you going to buy something that goes up in value, or are you going to buy something that goes down in value? If you choose to hold dollars, you are making the conscious decision to hold something that is guaranteed to go down in value with each new year. Makes you think about what you're doing with all the money in the bank account, doesn't it? So, crypto. Crypto is going to continue to expand with what is going on in Russia and the Ukraine. The effect on inflation is probably going to be increased. The ability of the Fed to tighten monetary policy is probably going to be reduced because of the additional uncertainty that is happening globally right now. And the effect of that uncertainty is that prices are going to be accelerating throughout 2022, in my opinion. If I'm wrong, you can hold me accountable and share this video with me in a year, right? But I would expect that inflation will continue to rise. All you got to do is look at the data here, right? So this is over the last 3 years here. Look at this. This is in 2020, right? This is basically in March, right? It was 1.54% for inflation, and we see a tank, right? And what does this line look like? Well, that's a pretty steep slope there. If you had to draw a line from here to the top here, that's a pretty steep slope. Do you see that changing anytime soon? I don't know. Not with the clown that's in office right now that calls himself president. That's definitely not going to be changing anytime soon. We have all this geopolitical issues that are happening. We have a complete puppet in office that doesn't have any idea what they're doing and is just doing what he is told to do. And we already know that the government is going to continue to print money. So these different things, and then you see like the dictator in Canada, the turd guy or whatever his name is, going through and arresting people who oppose his political opinion, going through and stealing their money, right? Trampling people with horses and doing horrible things that is supposedly a democracy. And you have also this crazy whack shit going on in Australia. What do you think is going to happen to crypto? I could have all the money I wanted right here on my phone that the government does not have access to. That is completely mine, and I get to use it how I want to use it. With no oversight, right? From the bank, none of that. So do you think something that allows people to have more freedom, more flexibility, and there's a higher probability that the price is actually going to increase for several reasons, which we can touch on a future video if you care to go down that rabbit hole. You can let me know in the comments. That is going to continue to explode. So, not saying what you should do with your money, but I do believe you should educate yourself. And financial literacy and financial education is not like, oh, I read this book, I am financially literate. Financial literacy is a journey that you never stop on because shit is constantly changing. Now, if you found this video interesting and helpful or insightful in some way, or you just want to make fun of me, share this video with somebody else. Appreciate it. Talk to you soon. Peace.